Hey, you got kids. This is the module 2. It is our first section of macroeconomics. We did this first section in micro, but we skipped over section or module 2 because we didn't feel the need to cover any macro stuff then. So we're going to go back and look at that first before you jump into section 3. So as you look at this introduction to macroeconomics, a couple things that you're going to find here. One of them is going to be the business cycle. So as you look at the business cycle, basically what the business cycle is, it's going to show us GDP, which is all the goods and services that are bought and sold in an economy, right? So we got real GDP over here. And then on the bottom, we have time. So this is time going forward. And then what you're going to see here is potential, like what we could do. And over time, because we're more productive, etc., you're going to see our potential GDP. So this is just says potential on there, is going to be upward sloping over time. We become more productive. We figure out new ways to do things. The actual GDP doesn't look like that. The actual GDP is going to go up and down. This is the business cycle. Okay. What we're going to see in the business cycle is you'll see times like this where we see good things. We'll see an expansion in this area, okay? And then at the top, we'll see like a peak of some kind. Then what's going to happen is down here, we're going to start seeing a contraction as we move forward. Like the economy gets going pretty good, and all of a sudden it's like, I don't know, maybe people have everything or some other event has happened. We start seeing this contraction occur. And then down here at the very bottom, we have a trough. And it then is going to pick up again. We'll have another expansion, another peak, and it just keeps going and going forward as time goes on. And this is our business cycle. So it shows that alteration between good times and bad times. Now, a depression is simply defined as a very deep and prolonged downturn. But like a recession technically is 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP. So we can't really say we're in a recession until after we've been in a recession, because then they'll go back and look at it and they'll say, oh yeah, those numbers do indicate a recession happened. You might know that you're feeling bad. You might know that things aren't so good in your economy, but it can't be technically defined until that moment. If this website down here shows you some business cycle things, you can look at it. It does say like, hey, look, here was the peak year, the quarter, like the trough month, when it happened, peak to trough, how many months, and you can go through and see like, hey, when was the last recession that we had? Oh, we can go back and say like in 2007 to 2009, we have this like little recession in here. So it is interesting to look at those numbers as you go, and you can go back and check them out. As you go forward though, unemployment and employment are part of these things in this business cycle. So when you think about how many people are in the labor force overall, right? The labor force is basically all of the employed people and all the unemployed people added together. That's how many workers we have. Employed people are people who are looking for a job or who have a job, work a job, not counting the military, that doesn't count. But when you look at it, if they have any like 1 hour with or without pay for at least 15 hours there, that's what they're talking about in terms of being employed. Now, being unemployed, you don't have a job, right? And you have to be looking. Like that's part of the key to unemployment. It says in here, but is actively looking for work in a 4-week period prior to the reference week that we're talking about. If you decide to not look for work, then technically you are not unemployed. You're not counted at all. Okay, so employed means you have a job. Unemployed means you don't have a job, but you are looking for work. And if you're not looking for work, then you're not counted. Your unemployment rate then just takes like that little equation there, 100 times the number of unemployed people divided by the number of people in the labor force. Okay, so you gotta figure those out. Those will all be little equations that we'll work with, and you'll have to calculate out unemployment. You'll have to be able to calculate labor force, etc. There is some unemployment data also that we can check out. You can go to the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics, and you can see these were the unemployment numbers for the last bunch of years here. And you can see like in 2010, like right after the Great Recession, we had like 9% unemployment. And then you can see through these years of Obama, it like slowly but surely started to come down. And then right at the end of Obama, it was down to like 4.7-ish%, right? Ish. And then all of a sudden, here's President Trump, kept coming down, down, down. We were in the 3% unemployment. Like that's amazing. Like we don't even talk about full employment until we're talking like 4 to 6. So we're beyond full employment. I mean, that's crazy. And then of course, coronavirus happened. And here in April, we really felt it. 14.7% unemployment, 13.3 in May. Now, some of those people have returned back to work. So now the last number here is November of 6.7% unemployment. So as you can see, when you have like a major shock to your system, these numbers can definitely show it. So as you look at this unemployment data, really that would mean we're probably in this time of a contraction, right? We're having people who are unemployed in here. Now, are we at the bottom of this thing? Maybe. And then, we can expect that as soon as maybe a vaccine comes out, we're going to see like a nice little jump in that expansion happening. Okay. So that aggregate output, the economy's total production of goods and services, that's what we're talking about when we're measuring this GDP in our business cycle. What happens in terms of like inflation, deflation, etc.? Your nominal income is not adjusted for any sort of inflation or deflation. Okay. Real income is. So your nominal income would be like how much you would make, just the number, right? Big number. Your real income is showing you your income with what you can actually purchase. So it takes into consideration that goods might be more expensive now. And if you didn't get a raise that kept up with inflation, you actually made less money. I looked at my coaching check and I saw my check 10 years ago compared to my check now. The number is bigger, but compared to inflation, I'm actually getting paid less to coach now than I did 10 years ago, even though it looks like a bigger number. But compared to what had happened over inflation in the last 10 years, it actually is less overall buying power than what I had 10 years ago. So that's how you can use that nominal and real income kind of numbers. So inflation is just the overall rise in price level. We're going to check that out in this as in macro as we go on. Deflation would be if there was a fall in the overall price level. Deflation actually is probably worse than inflation. It doesn't seem like it makes any sense, but as we go through, we'll explain that one too. What is the goal for government in an economy? What we really want is price stability. We want prices to be about the same. Maybe a little bit of inflation would be good, just to keep your economy moving in the right direction. Overall economic growth, when you start seeing production possibility curves like this, right, and you're going to see like how much this production possibility curve is increased, we've done these before, right? And usually we only show this production possibility growth. Like when we show something like this is probably like 4 to 6% like unemployment in here. And when we see this moving out, that means we're beyond what we like full employment, which is crazy. So when you think about right before the coronavirus happened, we were at like 3.7%. Our economy was moving here, right? We were actually expanding. Something was going on that was pushing that boundary so we could see this expansion beyond what even full employment would be. Now, of course, we're producing less. We're probably inside that curve. But you can see economic growth when you see that push out of your production possibility curves. And in this case, we have consumer goods and capital goods that they're talking about. We do use models all the time in macro, just like we did in micro. It's hard to simulate what an economy actually does. But we use these models to say, hey, in theory, this is what's happening. Does it always look exactly like that? Do the models need tweaking over time? Yeah, and as you get into more in-depth econ classes, like if you were becoming an econ major in college, you might look at something. Here we're just going to say, you know what, this is what should happen. This is the basics of how it works, and then we model it out so you can see it. All right. So as you look at it, we know it's not perfect, but when we start saying like, hey, all things being equal, like this is what should happen or this is what's going on, that's what we're talking about. Okay, so as you look at this, hopefully macro will be a fun class for you. I think it's interesting. I think your micro background will help you out. But again, it's going to be bigger topics: business cycle, unemployment, inflation, and we're going to get into more specifics in every one of those topics. This is just sort of an intro to telling you what's in there. All right, till next time.